There's going to be some links for me to copy.
Okay.
Is your last name pronounced Ferguson, Heather?
Yes, it is.
Right, it looks like it's getting there. Okay, so it's buffering on my end, but I do see people in the chat.
Okay.
Can you guys hear us? Oh, there we are. Okay, I guess there's a little bit of a delay. So it's buffering on my end, but I do see people in the chat.
Okay.
Can you guys hear us? Okay. Oh, there we are. Okay, I guess there's a little bit of a delay. So it's buffering on my end, but I do see people in the chat. Okay. Okay, now I have it in two places, so I have to figure out how to keep it from. Can you guys hear us? Because it's echoing back and forth.
I muted myself just in case.
Okay. Oh, there we are. Okay. Well, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to be able to see the. Okay, so it's buffering on my end, but I do see people in the chat. Let me see if I mute. Okay, let's see if I can see their comments on here. So I have to figure out how to keep it from. Can you guys hear us? Because it's echoing back and forth.
I muted myself just in case.
Oh, no chat.
Okay.
Here.
Oh, there we are. Okay.
Okay, anybody in the chat room who knows how to do this, help a sister out. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to be able to. Because can you hear me twice, Heather?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, because I muted my Zoom before because I thought maybe that was giving the feedback, but I probably not on my end.
Okay, let's see if I can see their comments on here. So I have to figure out how to keep it from. Because it's echoing back and forth. so.
Yeah, the echo is horrible.
Okay. Okay, anybody in the chat room who knows how to do this?
Okay, let me see if I can turn the volume down on YouTube.
Can you hear me twice, Heather?
Like a big delay. Then I'm hearing you again. So let's see. I'm looking to.
I'm going to turn the volume all the way down on my YouTube. This can never just go off without a issue ever. Okay. Still buffering here. Now I can't get my YouTube to come back up.
Let's see.
Someone said it sounds better.
Oh, okay.
It said mute the stream. Okay. Somebody said start over. Yeah, that's what we're getting ready to do. And it sounds better because my YouTube is not actually showing up right now.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay, here we go. I'm gonna turn the volume. Okay, I muted my YouTube. I don't know about Zoom. I had Be Live, but I thought it was kind of expensive, so I switched over to Zoom, but Be Live didn't do this.
Is it still on your end?
Still buffering. Look and see if I can see it over here. Okay. Okay, so do we sound okay to you guys now? You can see you and hear you well. Okay, I think we're good. I don't know what's going on with I can see the comments on my phone. I don't need to see it on the screen. Okay, all right, so thank you so much for joining us tonight, you guys. So this lovely young lady I have with me is Heather Ferguson. And Heather is actually the lady that sent the book to me. So I wanted to bring her on here with me tonight, since she was one of the many people that recommended the book, and then she was so kind to send it to me. So welcome, Heather. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you for having me.
Computer, sometimes this happens. Okay. All right. So the gifts of imperfections. or of imperfection. So why'd you recommend the book? Why were you one of the people that
Wow. Well, I read it actually about 2 years ago, and then it's definitely a reread. It's one that is really good to read again after a little while. And just based on some of the things that you were talking about and some of your YouTube videos kind of leading up to this point, just
Yeah.
I kept going back to the book every time you'd say something, and I'd go back to the book. And so that was why I recommended it. Probably
Yeah.
what other people did too.
That was the strange part to me, because I had never read the book, and then I got the book and I was like, wait, what? Like, okay, this is really fitting. So that was really strange to me. I was like, okay, all right. So, and you said it's a reread. I can tell that I will come back to this book many, many times. I haven't gotten as far in the book as I should have, because I keep going back. I'm like,
Yep.
what? Go back to this and reread this. So yeah, I can definitely tell that it's going to be a reread.
Yeah, it's a skinny book, but it's deep. So, you could take a minute to read a chapter and then think about it and then go on
Exactly.
or get stuck. So,
And so the first part of the book that it's after was before the first chapter, The Gifts of Imperfection, which was the part that really sung to me, is owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy, the experiences that make us the most vulnerable. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness, we will discover the infinite power of our light. So I loved reading that.
yeah, I mean, it's the perfect, it all goes together, right? The good
Right.
and the bad. And if you're not willing to touch the bad, then you're going to miss out on the good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. I say that all the time. Like, people ask me like, where do you begin? Where does healing begin? And I was like, it's painful, it's ugly, it stinks. Like, you got to get down to all of the filthy stuff, and you have to be real and honest about it, and just start peeling away the layers piece by piece. And it ain't fun. And it's not comfortable at all.
No, it's really uncomfortable, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Very uncomfortable. So I wrote down, let me read a few comments. Nasa, I didn't get as far either. It's very slow. I keep starting over. A few people said that to me, that it starts out very slow, and it does. It does. You have to just get through the beginning, like her introduction.
Right. Well, yeah, because I think she's trying to lay the groundwork.
Right.
You almost want to skip it, but then it's probably good not to.
Exactly. Yeah. I started digging into some of the chapters, and I was like, well, no, I got to find out who this lady is. So I got to go back and, see what is this lady's story. So yeah, absolutely. So I wrote down wholehearted living. That's basically, in my opinion, that's basically what the book is about. Like, is what the book is trying to teach you how to do, is live wholehearted. That's basically what it all equals up to. But I wrote down courage, compassion, and connection. Those three things. I figured we would spend time talking about those three things tonight.
Yeah, I actually wrote those down too. I said courage, compassion, and connection seem hard to do, but it has to be practiced every day.
Absolutely.
That was one of the things that stood out for me right at the beginning, I think, in this preface, which It was really weird because I marked it all up before I even got into the book.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I probably will never be able to pass this book on to anybody because I've written all through it. So, yeah. She says courage is one of the most important qualities wholehearted people have in common. I never knew that, core is a Latin word for heart. I never really paid attention to that thing.
I never knew that either.
Yeah.
Makes sense though. When you go to the introduction and she kind of talks about self-love, and what was the other, there was another word that she used, but what hung out for me was the self-love part. That's always so hard for us to do.
Right. She asked the question in this book, can you love someone more than you love yourself? What do you think about that?
I think a lot of people do. And I think that's where it becomes self-destructive, because if you don't love yourself enough,
right,
you can be chasing your tail for a long time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think people do it all the time. It's when you get to the point where you love yourself more, then, somebody asked a question last week, and I actually failed this question. Who are the 5 people in your life that are most important? And I wrote it all down. And then they were like, okay, who are they? And it was like, my kids, my husband, my mom, my sister. I wasn't on the list.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, if you're not on that list,
that's a problem.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm not on the list. So, yeah.
I talked in a video that I did one time about, I called it the pecking order. And so I said, what is your pecking order? And meaning like, the wife, the husband, and the children, right? Most women will say, my kids come first, then my husband, and then myself. And it's like, no, that's not the correct order. That's not, you can't pour from an empty cup. It's you, actually, let's be clear, it's God.
Exactly.
It's you, it's your spouse, and then it's the crumb snatchers. They come in. They're last, they're last.
Well, and a lot of people argue about the spouse.
People will argue you in the ground about that. No one comes before my kids. No one comes before my. It's like, if you're gonna, at the end of the day, your children are going to leave you, Now, and we pray that your husband doesn't. But if you keep putting the kids before him, he just might. But they're going to leave you. They're going to go be grown people. They're going to come see you like on Christmas and Thanksgiving, possibly, and you're there. Yeah, you're with your husband. So, you cannot put the children before your husband, and you cannot put any of those before yourself. Yeah, that's always a good question to ask people and see how they answer it.
Because that's what happens when the kids leave and they go to college, and then you got 2 strangers living in the house.
Exactly.
Time on the kids and everything else.
Yeah. And then you're still meddling in the kids' business and still trying to, over mother them because you don't know how to put your husband first or how to be attentive to him. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Malika, let me answer some questions. Question: why is this conversation important for women of color, particularly Black women? I think you want to answer that first.
Um, Man, I think, you know, even what we were just talking about historically, especially because a lot of Black women, they are the mother and they are the father. So their kids are everything.
Right.
And they work so hard to provide for them that it's natural to put themselves on the back burner.
Right.
And, or they watch their mother do it.
Yeah.
And doing it any other way seems almost selfish, you know, but and I think for women of color, it's very important because we are almost inbred to put ourselves last.
Absolutely. And then it ties in, with that whole self-love thing, because a lot of us struggle with that. Just a lot of us struggle with that.
We-
And I am Rachel Ellis says we often find it easy to love others because we have been taught that it's narcissistic to be in love with self. We shall we shelf ourselves behind the ugly dishes. Absolutely.
Yep.
Um, that's funny. I saw a comment pop up today. There's a viewer who absolutely adores calling me narcissistic, and I think it's so funny to me. And the comment was on a video about, is your self-esteem too low or are other women's self-esteem too high? And the video was really speaking about, loving and caring for yourself and self-esteem and all that type of stuff. But and this individual was like, oh, here's narcissism at its finest again. And yeah, that's very true. Like if you think or feel a certain way about yourself, you carry yourself a certain way, people have the word narcissistic so twisted up that
Yes.
it's crazy. So yeah, absolutely. And we're taught we shelf ourselves oftentimes. And sometimes when we don't, I guess it appears to be narcissistic to someone who's on the outside looking in, who does not spend that amount of time loving and caring for themselves, who they don't find that type of stuff important. It's very important.
Or they're made to feel guilty if they
Right.
and that's kind of where it's always been, especially for us. We've spent so much time historically taking care of other people, taking care of other people's kids, you know, doing everything for others, that it almost does seem selfish to take care of yourself. But if you don't feed yourself, then you really can't take care of anybody else, not well.
Yeah. The one thing she did say that or that someone had written to her about, if you could love someone more than you loved yourself, someone said that you can't, but other people or like your children can show you, what true love feels like. They can show you a different side of it.
Absolutely. And, I think too, people love you. If you don't really love yourself, you almost don't believe them.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can't receive it. No. No, it looks crazy. Like you want something. You're here for a reason. Yeah.
You kind of like that whole part about the courage, you know, you keep them at arm's length because am I
Right.
good enough for that? And I mean, we do a lot of that.
Yes. Yeah. Makai says, for a long time, I've been loving myself till when I told someone I love myself and they told me I'm selfish. Till they tried loving self, they realized the importance of it. Yeah, loving. If someone tells you that you're selfish because you love yourself, like move them to the left, to the left, to the left.
Mm-hmm.
A lady that I talked to, um, and she's a more mature lady than I am. She is, I think she's getting ready to be 70, I want to say, but very, very jazzy. she told me this, and I loved every minute of it. She said, when I turned 40, I adopted the word selfish. She said from 40 to 50, it was all about SELF. 50 to 60, I was done with the ish, the ISH. I was like, I'm so stealing that. I'm so stealing that.
I love that. Self.
Yes. D. Muhammad says, I believe this discussion is perfect for Black women because no one has ever taught us that being imperfect is okay, that there is beauty in our faults too.
Right.
100%.
Yeah. I say that I'm an aware perfectionist.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's how we were raised. Get good grades, be the best, not do your best, but be the best, you know.
Yeah.
And that's hard to unlearn.
Right.
It's really hard to unlearn.
It's hard to love yourself when you're really critical of yourself.
Well, and I don't know where she gets into that. It's probably maybe that chapter right before she starts the guidepost, and she talks about self-compassion.
Right.
One, like the things we say to ourselves that we would never say to other people.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, I'm so stupid.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
We say it all the time, and we don't think about that. And if someone made a mistake, you would never, you know, at least not out loud, say to them,
You're
you
stupid.
know, you're so stupid. You would never do that, but yet we do that to ourselves all the time.
And we don't realize how damaging it is to our self-esteem because we think I'm saying it, it's okay. You know, if someone else was saying it to us, it would instantly tear us down, but we don't think about the long-term effect it has when we say it ourselves. Absolutely. Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. That's why I talk all the time about positive affirmations, like just always, you know, get up in the morning with that stuff and go to bed with it again at night.
Yeah, because especially when you say it out loud, you hear it, and you know, people feel like if you think it, but it's even better if you say it.
Right. Cheryl Burnett says, how can you love your kids when you can't truly love you? Kids can feel that. Absolutely. Kids feel that. I talked about that when I was talking about in my Secure Your Bag video. Like your kids know when you're not kind to yourself, when you're not taking care of yourself, when you don't love yourself. They feel all of that. They see and feel things we don't even know that they see and feel.
Absolutely. And you know, even when you buy things for your kids and then you leave yourself out. I stopped doing that a long time ago.
Yeah, you cannot do that. It's funny how, yeah, we start out doing that, and I can just think about how like I would feel if I went out and bought myself some new clothes or bought myself some new shoes and didn't buy them anything. You know, it would have torn me apart before I understood that, you know, they have shoes and clothes, they're perfectly fine, but you know, mommy has to be taken care of too.
Yep. Exactly.
Amber Richardson says, I think sometimes you do have to be selfish, especially when it comes to things that are important to you, like taking care of yourself, especially your mental health. Yeah, you definitely have to be selfish. Like I told you, selfish, SELF. There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing at all.
How are you about like accepting people's compliments? How do you feel about that?
Now, it's easy for me. I can easily accept compliments. Previously, no. It was like I would do this thing right here. Oh, I love your hair. Someone would say that to me, right? And I would say, oh, thank you. It's not acting right today. It's really dry, you know? Stuff like that, right? And you know what? I was watching Oprah many years ago, and she was talking about how they were having this discussion about how when someone gives you a compliment, saying thank you, how that's not even always the appropriate answer, right? And think about it. If someone says, I like your hair, and you say, yes, I do too, that sounds to most people narcissistic, right? But it's actually the appropriate answer. It's the right answer. You know, I like your shirt. Yeah, I do too. Yeah, that's the right answer, you know? And so that got my attention. I was like, wow, okay. The lady that was speaking on it was saying, like, when you say like, oh, thank you, you sound kind of, you know, unsure and kind of insecure, or like, oh, okay, because I wasn't really sure, you know, if it was a nice shirt, but thank you. Yeah. Now, how do you feel about accepting compliments?
So I'm getting better at it, but sometimes when I get compliments, I'm suspicious. Like, are they genuine? Or, well, what do you want? You know,
Yeah.
what do you really want? But I'm getting better. I'm getting better at it.
Yeah.
You know, with I think I did put this outfit together. I thank you. You know, glad you like it. You know.
Yes, exactly. Glad
But
you like
it's
it.
harder. It's not natural for us to do it.
Right. That's fine. That was a good question. Melon and Poppin'. Oh my God. If I receive a compliment, I will play it down so quickly or turn the compliment back to the other person because I don't feel like I deserve it. Yeah, girl, stop doing that. I like your hair. Yes, I do too. Yes. Yes. It makes you seem very insecure when you do that, especially when you, like, you know, turn it back on them. If you want to pay them a compliment as well, that's okay. But, you know, when they give you yours, then, you know, take yours. Accept it. Yeah. Erica. Hello, Erica. So for those who joined late and didn't hear when I introduced Heather Ferguson, Heather is actually the young lady that sent me the book. So I thought it would be nice to bring her on here with me to chat about the book, to conversate about it. Do you feel obligated to give a compliment back? Not if you don't want to. I mean, I don't think you should have to do anything you don't want to do where that's concerned. If it's genuine.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Only if it's genuine, though.
Even that was a part of like how hard it can be to accept the compliment. Just take it.
Yeah, take it.
Like you got to give something back.
Right, right. Another thing that she talks about in this that kind of like really got my attention was people who are always giving, and they're not able to receive, and they can never ask for help. They would dare not ask anyone, you know, if they truly had a need. And the way she talks about it is like you're actually not giving from the place that you're really giving from if you're not able to receive as well. I was like, wow, that was huge, because that's me, you know. Right. I'm always the one giving, and I would never ask anyone for anything ever, you know. And I could probably be like starving and sleeping in a cardboard box. I'd be like, I wouldn't tell anybody, you know.
Well, but that's also a part of culture too. Like I can remember my mom being like, yeah, if I'm struggling or I'm suffering, no one's gonna know. You know,
Right.
that's kind of back there in that subconscious,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
which is that whole
Erica. I love Erica's. She said whenever I receive a compliment, I always say glory to God.
there you go.
I love that. Glory to God. Responding with thanks is a compliment. Yeah, it is. I mean, don't be rude and just walk away, but don't also feel obligated to.
Exactly.
I thought Jean K, I thought her guest was Oprah. No, Heather. That's me as well. Thanks, Heather, for the book recommendation. Can we talk about her thoughts on shame?
Mm,
Yes, someone wants to talk about shame. Do you want to talk about shame?
why don't we talk about shame?
Okay, I gotta.
It's not easy.
My friend is reading the book, okay, and I don't know if she's in here. I don't see her. She called me and she said, "I just got to this part of the book that made me think of you."
Mm,
And I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, I thought of how you shared your shame story on YouTube, and I was reading about that." And I said, "Yeah, I read a little bit about that in the book." I said, "But I didn't share my shame story on YouTube." She said, "Yes, you did. You know, where you told." And I said, "Oh, that's not my shame story, girl." Not anymore. You know, man, way back when that was my shame story. But I told that story. That story doesn't bring me shame. Doesn't bring me. Here's the thing. From that video, there were some. I got to a point where I stopped reading the comments because there were some people who weren't ready to receive the information. There were some people who didn't understand it, you know, and she touches on that type of stuff and how you should be careful with who you share your shame story with, because everybody is not ready to receive your story, you know, your shame story. But some people were like, "Oh my God, how could you tell your family's business? And how could you say this?" And I said, first of all, it's my story to tell. Okay, so I can tell it to whoever I want to tell it to. You know, it is a situation that happened to me in my life that for a period of my life defined who I was, but it does not any longer. And it's not my shame story because I'm not ashamed of it. And that's how I was able to get on YouTube and tell the world, you know. And also because I always feel like as women, we feel like what we're going through it all by ourselves. And so we have all this shame and this guilt. We're just carrying this stuff around in backpacks and Birkin bags and everything else, you know, still trying to be cute, but covering it up because we feel like we're going through it alone and no one's going to understand. And that was my main reason for doing that, you know,
right.
because of how I felt alone, you know, when I was dealing with that type of stuff, you know. So
Exactly. And yeah, in the, you know, the shame, I read that one over and I think over again. And I had to come back to it a third time because we are taught to like, ooh, family secrets, you know, we don't talk about family secrets. um, and those are the things that definitely bring shame and pain.
absolutely.
They keep on giving, you know,
Right.
stops.
And she says here in the book, shame needs three things to grow: secrecy, silence, and judgment. Three things to grow.
Absolutely. And then if that's the case, you can't be worthy. You can't really have shame and worthiness at the same time. That's really hard to do.
Right. Someone asked to show the cover of the book. Can y'all see that?
I really struggled with the authenticity part for a while, just trying to unpack that, because when you spend so much time in the perfectionist realm, I think that you're not always even sure what your own authenticity is because you've spent so much time covering it up.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't know who you really are. You don't know. So, yeah, that was always my biggest thing. Like, I wanted to be my true self, my true quirky, crazy self. I wanted to be my true self. And I didn't want to have to hide behind the things that I had been through in my life. That was huge for me. Huge.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to read a comment real quick. Goldie Jones says, I think a lot of this advice is making women more masculine than we think. Um, I think it's the opposite. I
Mm-hmm.
really do. I think it's the opposite because I think that when you're walking around carrying a bunch of mess,
Right.
you can't get into your feminine energy. It's hard for you to get into your feminine energy. So I feel like it's
Yeah,
the opposite.
sure. Um, and I think when we talk about as Black women, we are almost programmed to not be our authentic selves. When we are our authentic selves, we're considered angry,
Right.
um, combative, all of these things that aren't feminine per se, um,
Absolutely.
and not positive. So I agree that when you're able to embrace who you are, then your femininity should be coming right through.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't really agree with that. Um, Erica says, I know that's right. No shame in a lesson learned. Yes, absolutely. No shame there. Um, our stories bless others in their journeys. And I agree with that.
Right. And that's the thing. I think, you know, what do we do with it? We cover it up and we hide it, okay. But if it's your story, what are you doing with it? How are you making it? I think that's also a big part of the worthiness is, for me, my big story, my story and the thing that brought me shame, I try to use every day to make sure that how I felt, no one else ever feels that way, you know.
Right.
So,
And yeah, and that's the thing. You want to make sure, you want to try to help somebody else not have to go through
exactly.
what you went through. Because as women, we don't look out for each other
No.
a lot like we should.
Oh my.
We really don't. And I talked about that. I said, sometimes we can see somebody getting ready to walk through the fire and we don't say, girl, that's hot, don't do that. And we got to look out for each other more. We got to let each other know that, it's all love, because we all have some stuff, where shame and judgment and all that type of stuff is concerned. The one thing that people don't think about is we all have some stuff.
And it's what you do with the stuff that makes the difference.
Absolutely. It's what you do with the stuff. The Barefoot Bombshell says, yes, perfectionism makes you an avatar instead of an authentic person. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Goldie Jones says, I don't want to be disagreeable here, so I'll refrain from going deeper. Not at all, Goldie. We agreed to disagree in a respectful manner over here.
Mm-hmm.
All day. Patricia says, we're too busy comparing ourselves to others, and most of the time we spend more time worrying about what others think, and those we are worrying about are not even thinking about us. Right.
So true.
Right. On my on our group chat that I had the other day in my Patreon group, somebody just made it real clear. Like when you're thinking about what other people are thinking about you, like you have to tell yourself, these people ain't paying my bills. You know, these people don't know me. It is what it is. And most often they ain't thinking about us like we think they are.
There's a part in here, and I can't remember if it's before we get, I can't remember where it is, but in the book where she talks about balancing what people think of you and not caring what people think of you. Like there has to be a balance, because if you walk around not caring what anybody thinks, then you're just going to be a mess. But if you care too much about what people think, then you're not going to do anything at all, and you're just going to be paralyzed. Right. So it's really about finding that balance between caring and not caring so much, you know.
Absolutely. And it really sounds kind of complicated, but it's really kind of simple, where, you know, caring what people think about you is basically how you carry yourself and how you behave. Mm-hmm. You know, how you behave, how you present yourself to the world. Definitely we have to be concerned about that aspect of it. But where everything else is concerned, not so much.
Exactly. And it's who do you care what they think? Because
right.
People, their opinion about you just really doesn't matter, you know. So I think that's where the balance comes in. Sometimes we're caring about what the wrong people think.
Absolutely. The wrong people. Always Busy says, I agree, embrace who you are and femininity comes through. The Barefoot Bombshell says, I think she's referring to advice our elders give us to be strong all the time, not the book's advice. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's what happened to our femininity. That's the thing. With us, it's like, be strong, stand on your own 2 feet. You don't need nobody. Take care of yourself. You know, you don't need a man. You don't need anything. Don't be asking people for stuff. You know, as daughters, that's how we were treated. And then now with boys, you know, I say all the time, mothers coddle their sons now, you know, and sometimes with good reason, because, you know, especially our little Black boys, you know, we have so much to be worried about when it comes to them. So we're like, no, you ain't going out in the street, you know, come sit down, let me love on you. And
well, and the other thing is, so many of our mothers are mothering and fathering at the same time. And so
and you can't do both.
Not well, you know. And I think that's a big part of, it's hard to be feminine when you got to be the man and the woman.
It is.
It's confusing for you and everybody else. It's just not how it was meant to be. It's how we are. And who knows for when we do it, but it makes it harder.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't be both. Makai, we're here to build each other up and never tear each other. Carolina Cruz says, how do we get more authentic with ourselves? How do you get more authentic with yourself? Like we were saying in the beginning, how you start the process, how you get the ball rolling is to be honest with yourself. Sometimes we are so busy covering up and hiding and lying to everybody in the world and lying to ourselves, and we don't really know who our true authentic self is until you start to peel away the layers and be honest with yourself about who you are, what you've been through, you know, be honest with yourself about your stuff and sit inside of your stuff for a minute.
Yeah, I don't think you can begin to figure out your authentic self until you start to figure out the shame part.
Right.
Because you can't do both. You can't be both. And you know, when I first read the book, I was like, "Ooh, it's time for me to go see a therapist." I was like, "Woo, yes." And that, look, I was just like, it's time.
Yeah.
And and it was helpful because it helped me kind of figure out a lot of just how I thought and then how I portrayed it.
Right.
But yeah, when I read it, I was just like, boy, you know.
Yeah. I went before the book, so had I not have book, I probably would have been like, okay, I won't be on YouTube for like the next 3 weeks. Yes. And what else did I write down here?
Let's see.
Oh, courage. I wrote underneath courage where she talks about speaking honestly and openly about who we are, what we are feeling, and our experiences, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that getting authentic type stuff. That's how you get in there.
Right. You know, for me, it was when I was in high school, I was told that I couldn't do what I wanted to do in college. So I wanted to be a speech therapist, and I was told by the guidance counselor, well, I don't know. Do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Well, so then here I am. Well, I don't know. Maybe I can't handle that.
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
and
thanks.
exactly. And I can remember her saying to me, well, you know, you have to do anatomy and physiology. I couldn't even tell her at 16, I didn't even know what that was because you telling me I can't do it, you know?
Right.
So I carried that for a long time, just in the back of my head. Can I really do it?
Yeah.
Can I really do it? You know? So it's also about what we pour into other people,
Right.
you know, the things that we say. So yeah.
Yeah. That's that I talked about when I said that I was like 9 or 10. I said I wanted to be a supermodel.
Mm.
And my mother and my stepdad, because my stepdad had asked me, he's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a model. I want to be a supermodel. And he was like, oh no, you're too short, and supermodels are really, really pretty. They're really beautiful women, you know. And I confirmed it with my mom. You know, my mom was like, oh, yeah, yeah, that's true. But you can be anything else you want to be. You could be a doctor. You could be a lawyer. I was like, I don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer. I want to be a supermodel. So, of course, now here I go, going out into the world. Not only am I short, but I'm ugly.
Right.
I'm not pretty
That's
enough.
what you heard. That's what you heard.
That's what I heard. Yeah, that's what a 9-year-old child hears. You're short and you're ugly. So now go be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrible. And so the next part that I wrote down was compassion. This is a good one. This is a good one. Let me read some of these comments before I get into that. There's some good comments. So often we are judged and expected to act and look a certain way at work and within the family unit. I want to be true to myself. Yeah, those expectations that people put on you as you're starting to make your journey into girlhood, and then you carry that stuff into womanhood. And authentic starts by standing in the mirror. All you can do is laugh when you start to be honest with yourself. I tell people to do that all the time. I say butt naked. Stand in the mirror. It sounds horrible. You know, it really does. It sounds bad. Take it all off and stand in your, every woman has a full body mirror. Stand in that mirror, take a good long look at yourself, cry about it, judge it, criticize it for 5 minutes. and then start figuring out how you're going to love it. You know,
Right.
start learning how to be kind to it. Find those things about your body that you're absolutely in love with, the things about you, your personality, yeah, nothing like a good old mirror.
Well, and it's actually amazing how many people have never really done that.
I know. Yeah. Women,
Yes.
absolutely. Yes. Refuse. Like, I wish I would stand in a mirror with no clothes on.
Terrified. Even the thought, you just scared half of them, you know, they're like, never, no.
Right.
It's, it's probably the good beginning. It's probably the good beginning because it's hard to look at your imperfections and be okay with them.
And love your imperfections. Yeah, it is.
Mhm.
But if you can love the things about you that are jacked up, messed up, you're winning all day, winning.
And I think it's really important when we talk about our sons, but it's really important when we start talking about our daughters.
Right.
We don't love ourselves. Teaching our daughters to love themselves is impossible.
No, it can't be done. You
Impossible.
can't do that. That's that hole you can't pour from what's empty. That's how I didn't know, you know, I never saw my mother take care of herself. I never saw her act in a loving way to herself, you know, treat herself like a lady. I never saw those type of things. So where was I getting that from, you know?
Right. Because you can say it all you want, but they watch you.
They watch you. I heard this man say one time, he said, my father never tried to teach me how to be a man ever.
Mm.
He just lived his life and he let me watch him do it. And this
Mm.
man was an amazing man, you know. He said he just lived his life and he let me watch him do it. I was like, wow,
Right.
that's
Because you
that thing.
talk all you want, but they're
They're watching. Yeah.
watching. Watching.
They're watching. So compassion, learning to relax ourselves and move gently towards what scares us. Move gently towards the things that put the fear of God in you. Compassion.
There was one I underlined. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals.
Equals, right. I read that.
We know
Yeah.
our own darkness well. Can we be present with the darkness of others? So it goes back to like what we were saying about being good to yourself, because if you're not good to yourself, you can't really be there for other people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the boundaries. Did you
Oh,
read?
boundaries. Boundaries was I
Mm.
have a whole section on boundaries here. And I let me find my boundary notes here.
I struggle with that one.
I don't anymore, but every now and again I have a boundary issue, but I think for me, once I learned that it was okay for me to set boundaries for other people, it became easy for me to do that, you know. And then I started to learn that if you don't set boundaries for people and they behave how they typically behave, you can't be mad about it.
Right. But then we have the audacity to be mad though, when we, you know, but
And we will be. Yeah.
you think about it all the time. And I loved it because when she talked about boundaries, she talked about compassion, and that actually having boundaries is a form of compassion, because really when you have them, people know exactly where you stand.
Right.
There's no question, and people like to know where they stand. And so in actuality, having boundaries that are clear is a form of compassion.
Right. Now, this right here, the key is to separate people from their behaviors, to address what they're doing and not who they are. And I had to keep reading that. I was like, well, they're doing it. So the behavior belongs to the person. I thought about my own husband in that statement there, and how when he has certain behaviors, I'm like, oh, you're just acting like this, and I'm attacking him and who he is, when I'm supposed to be addressing the behaviors.
Right.
I was never clear on that before. I was like, that's powerful.
Exactly, because yeah, we make it about who they are. If you
Right.
were this way, you wouldn't do that, and that's not really true, but because we're all imperfect, right?
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. Now, Melvin and Poppin says it's hard to love the parts of yourself that you don't like. You just become settled in it. Well, it depends on, I say this, if it's something that you can do something about, if it's something that you have control over, if you have a big tummy, unless you have a medical issue, most often, if we're honest with ourselves, you can change that, right? That's something that you can change. If you're short, you don't have no control over that. If you're too tall, you don't have no control over that. If you have stretch marks because you had kids, you don't have no control over that, you know? So if it's stuff that you have control over, then you have to work to change it. But if it's stuff that, excuse me, you don't have control over, then you have to learn to love it because you're stuck with it.
Well, it's a part of who we are, right?
Yeah, it's a part of who you are. You know, it's your stuff. Let's take, as you mature, as you become a woman of a more mature age. You know, I'm not sure exactly how old you are.
I'm older than you, trust me.
Okay, well then then things start to change. You
Yeah,
know,
it all goes south.
and, yeah, and at first it's kind of like, ooh, you know, you're like in the mirror, you're like, oh, this is just, I'm not, you know, and it's a major reality check, because you're like, oh, I'm getting old now. I'm having hot flashes. Things are happening to me. I don't look like I looked when I was 20 anymore, but you have to learn how to embrace those changes. I'm like, I know women who are 43 years old and they're not here anymore, you know? And so you have to look at things like that. It's like, it's all petty. I'm spoken for anyway. And if this starts changing and he ain't happy with it, well, then he can go on. But
they change too, though. You know, they're changing too.
Oh, they're changing quicker than we are. That's why I was reading some comments, and some guys in the comments were talking about when women hit the wall. I didn't say anything, but it took everything in me not to say anything, because I was going to say, we hit a wall, but we don't hit it like y'all hit it. Now, let's be clear about that. Because y'all hit that wall hard and you hit it fast. So, yeah, you have to learn to love those things, not just learn to love those things that you cannot change.
Because then it just makes it so much harder, right? Because
right.
we are imperfect, no matter how hard we try. And if you can't accept those things, then you're just frustrated and mad all the time.
Absolutely. You're not comfortable in your clothes. You ain't comfortable in your skin. You're always trying to hide from somebody. Yeah. Now, Kayla Robinson says, so do we need to teach people how to treat you?
Oh, yeah.
100%. Yes, you absolutely teach people how to treat you. Most often without saying a word.
Yeah.
Without even saying a word. Yes, absolutely.
Even that takes practice though, but they get it.
They get it. Yeah. Yeah, they do. Diva 9000 said men slam into that wall, girl, 100 miles an hour. Hit that wall hard, boy. Talking about the guy in the comment section talking, y'all hit a wall. Oh, we hit it by ourselves? No, we don't.
Nope, nope, nope.
Mm-mm.
I'm not saying not to fight it, but you know.
And Cheryl says, yes, definitely have to embrace it and learn how to enhance where we are. After I turned 50, I was intentional on embracing it. Yes, you have to embrace it. There's so much more in life to worry about. Like, you know what? When I got to that point in my life where I stopped worrying so much about like my stomach and my cellulite and all that type of stuff, it's so freeing, you know. Just like when you don't worry about that type of stuff, you have other stuff that you can focus on in life, like how to get your mind right and how to get your heart together. All that other stuff is just it is petty.
Right.
It's petty.
It doesn't mean, like you were saying a couple of weeks ago, it doesn't mean that you walk around looking a mess.
No, absolutely. You still keep it all together in a stank.
But it doesn't preoccupy all of your waking hours.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? We are living in such a day where if women don't like it, they go fix it, right? If you ain't got no butt, you go get a new butt, whether it's on down on Crenshaw Boulevard or from a reputable surgeon. If you don't like your lips, you puff them up. If you don't like the wrinkles on your face, you fill them out, you know? And it's not a good thing. It's really not.
Yeah. Because then it can become an obsession.
It absolutely becomes an obsession. What do they call it? Body dysmorphic, or what is that? Yeah. We need more Black women or more Black known therapists because we need someone who can relate and understand what we go through. I believe that. There are a lot of amazing Black therapists out there, though. There really are.
But yeah, I mean, for sure, you would assume that they would have a better understanding of the story, you know?
Right.
The whole story.
Have you noticed that the things you worry about is what others compliment you on? Yeah, that's that goes to show, you know. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I know this last birthday I had, I wasn't really looking forward to it. I was like, I'm not really happy about this birthday.
Really?
Oh yeah, when I turned 50 at my last birthday. And when I walked into my office, they decided to have a party for me, and I have never in my life seen a bigger 5 and a bigger 0. Like, wow, those are big. I just had to get over it and just be like, okay, let's have a party, you know. But I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna be talking about this anymore. But I got over it.
Yeah, you get over it. See, I get excited about my birthday now, especially now. I think 40 was like, wow, I'm really getting ready to be 40. Like, I can't believe this, you know. But I get excited about it because every day I live, I love it. I'm like, I'm here, you know.
Well, and I think 50, I'm definitely more comfortable in my skin.
Oh yeah.
And that being authentic is a whole lot easier.
Well, they said they thought you were 37, so there you go.
If only.
Asquith Allen. Asquith, let me tell you this right now. Okay, Asquith wants to know, what do I think of Kevin Samuels' perspective of women hitting the wall? Nothing. Nothing. I don't think anything of it. Do you know who Kevin Samuels is? Oh, well, he's the high value alpha male teacher, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a man being able to learn how to be an alpha male?
No, but
me neither.
I'm writing it down, Kevin.
Yeah, write that down, girl. Look at some of those videos. You're gonna be just
check that out.
Call me. We'll talk about it. You're gonna be livid. Some days I'm sitting there. Here, this is the thing. We're talking about, since we're talking about self-love and shame, and women call in to the show on Zoom and they say, rate me, like rate me on a scale of 1 to 10. What am I? They really I've been at some lows in my life, but I ain't never called a man on the phone and said, could you rate me? I need to know my number. Where do I fit in here? I hate every minute of that. I just want to reach through my screen and grab these girls and shake them and say, what are you thinking? Go sit down somewhere and learn how to love yourself. You do not call a man and ask him to rate you, because it's different from but they say it all the time, one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? Exactly. You know what one man likes in a woman, there's some men out here who like thick women, there's some men who like tall women. So I just want to say, like, don't ever disrespect yourself by calling into a man's talk show and saying,
yeah, that's crazy. No, and I'm gonna have to check that out now, because
you need to see that. I don't think.
Woo, yeah.
And where's the gentleman that asked the question? How I feel about the wall. We just said we don't hit the wall nowhere near as hard as men hit the wall. So it's pointless.
No walls here.
No walls. We might hit it, but we're gonna break right on through it, right? No walls.
I'm on the other side looking better.
Right. Shoot. Do we need a man to tell you how fab you are, especially one who is telling you you are not worthy? Absolutely not. Yeah, you don't need no man to tell you how fabulous you are.
Right.
Ever, unless he's your husband, he could say it on Tuesdays and Thursdays to keep the spice alive. But no, you don't need that. You don't need that at all.
Well, I said that to my husband. He'd be like, what's wrong with you? Something wrong?
Right.
Feeling all right?
Yeah. Michael Smith, you talking to me? I miss the comments go fast. He isn't an alpha male, too flamboyant. Yeah, that's another thing, ladies. I want to tell you, if you're looking for an alpha male, alpha males, high value alpha males are not on YouTube telling people that they are high value alpha males. They are somewhere being high value alpha males, probably making some money, probably down at the yacht club somewhere. They're not demeaning women who they say are 5s and 4s, because they pick the women that they want to be with. Right. They're not slamming women who don't fit the description of the type of woman that they like. They just go and get the type of women that they like. Yeah. High value alpha males are not on YouTube 7 days a week professing to be high value alpha males. I'm drinking water, but I should have had wine tonight. I didn't know y'all was gonna come in here and start talking to me about Kevin Samuels. I had no idea. All right.
Okay.
Back to compassion. Shall we get back to compassion here? What else did I write? Our first response to pain is to self-protect and blame. That was good for me too. I was like, yeah.
Who do we blame though? Do we blame ourselves? Do we blame other people?
It depends. It depends on what the situation is, right? And it depends on where we are in our lives, right? Yeah, because I think that if stuff happened to us when we were children, I think we blame ourselves. But then I think when life starts to get shifty for us as adults,
right,
I think we blame other people. Yeah. Blame other people. Oh, I could have been a millionaire if I wouldn't have spent 3 years of my life with this fool. And yeah, you blame other people. Diva 9000, don't run over there and subscribe to that channel.
I'm gonna peruse a little bit. I'm gonna check it out.
Right. Mighty Strong said, "Nor are alpha males swindling people for money." Absolutely. A lion doesn't go around saying I'm a lion. No, they just be a lion all day long. And Shorty, what it is, it says we do tend to blame ourselves. Yeah, we blame ourselves for a lot of stuff that happens to us.
It's easy to blame ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Easy. It goes back to that self-love and that self-compassion part, right?
Yeah.
It's really easy. But I think it takes practice of not blaming yourself. It's all practice. It's all actionable. I think it just doesn't come naturally.
No. And it's never ending. It's a practice. You know, people ask me sometimes, well, how did you get better? And how did you learn to accept the things that happen to you? It's an everyday process. Like it's work all the time, every day. It'll probably be work for the rest of my life, you know. Wholehearted living, it's work every single day, you know. Yeah, it's step by step, piece by piece, and it's never ending. Like you can never get comfortable, so to speak, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because it's kind of easy. We like comfortable.
Yeah, comfortable is good.
Good. You know?
Comfortable is good. Get up, you know, every day, eat food, you know, all the food we want to eat. We go to work, come home, go to bed, still wallowing in our same self-pity, you know, not going to the gym to work out. We're comfortable, you know.
I mean, it's even these past few months being, you know, a lot of us stuck at home with coronavirus, working from home. I mean, I worked in my sweatpants in the house every day. Then when I was getting ready to go back out, I was like, wow, wait a minute. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna put on.
Yeah.
You know, because you get comfortable. I mean, so.
You do. I went through that just every day, like I ain't going nowhere. And I started feeling like, you know, I looked every day. And so I was like, nope, I got to go back to fixing myself every day, even though I'm not going to leave the house, you know, even though I wasn't leaving the house for a while. So sometimes you feel how you look. So I had to start like pretending and like, okay, let me put this on today and fix my face, put a little hair on, you know, make myself feel like something because I didn't want to get comfortable.
Right. But one of the videos that you did, the one where you were out in front of I don't know, were you at
Marshall? Yeah.
Marshall. Right. I mean, it's the same thing, right? You know, people kind of just drag kind of shows a little bit of probably what you're feeling inside.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think, and because it's not hard to get it together. Sometimes it appears to me it's more work to go out in public looking that way than it is to just slide on a pair of slacks, decent shirt. A lot of women were like, I ain't wearing no heels to Walmart. Put on an Oxford,
Right.
put on a mule or a loafer, put on a loafer and go, out the door.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I talked about it in my live video last week where someone on Instagram said that I was singling out Black women. And I said they felt like I was singling them out in a disrespectful manner. And I said, I wasn't singling them out. I said, but at the end of the day, I'm a Black woman.
Right.
And I know what we can get away with and what we can't get away with.
It may not be fair, but it just is what it is.
It's not fair, but it's life, right? We can't get away with it. They can.
Right.
We can't.
And
that's always on my heart. Like, no. Yeah, I'm for women. I'm for the women. I'm about the women, but I'm a sister coming and going. And I am for my sisters all day long. Right. And I know what we deal with. And I know what we can and what we cannot get away with.
Right.
We can get away with it,
Exactly. There are times when, my husband and I are going out, we're like going to the supermarket. He'll be like, I'm sorry, aren't we just going to the supermarket?
You're right.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Good. I'm glad you're saying it that way and not the other way,
Right. And then, you going to the supermarket like that? You know what? My son was in the 1st grade. This is how I learned my lesson about this. My son was in the 1st grade and it was my day off. And I was cleaning and I had to go pay for a field trip at his school. And I was like, shoot, let me go run up here and take care of this. So I go to his school. It's almost time for him to get out of school. So I was like, well, shoot, I'll just wait on him. So I'm in the hall. I'm talking to the teachers, talking to the kids. I had on a pair of sweatpants and a t-shirt and I had a scarf on. So I was cleaning, And my son comes running down the hall and he just stopped dead in his tracks when he saw me, And he didn't say anything, right? So we got in the car and I said, what's wrong? And he turned sideways in his seat. He said, why did you come in my school looking like that? He was in the 1st grade. And you know what? I gave him the Black mom answer because I had to pay for your trip. And if you get a job, you can pay for your own field trip. I wouldn't have to ever come to your school.
That's
Then later on, I thought about it. And I said, he right. Why did I go to his school looking like a homeless person? That wasn't right, Wasn't right. Yeah. So I learned my lesson with that one big time. I was like, yeah, I won't come to your school looking like that again.
Did you read the section on belonging? That was what chapter? That was like page.
Okay.
About belonging and fitting in.
Is it after connection?
Let's see. Yes, it was page 26, page 25 and 26. That one for me was really powerful on page 25.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, belonging and fitting in and how those are not the same thing.
Yeah. Love and belonging will always be uncertain. You want to elaborate on that section?
Okay, so the part that I made notes on was where it said, fitting in is about assessing a situation and becoming who you need to be accepted. Belonging, on the other hand, doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. And, you know, we always hear so much about fitting in. Nobody ever talks about belonging.
No, I've never heard anyone speak about belonging.
I reread that a couple times. Because if you're trying to fit in, you can't really be authentic, is kind of what she's saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because you're going to do whatever it takes to make you feel comfortable and to make the other people in the group feel comfortable in your presence. So, yeah, absolutely. Right. I get that. Belonging and fitting in.
Yep. Love and belonging will always be uncertain. So, yeah, I thought that one was, because once again, we like comfort. So if we want to really belong, we got to know it's probably going to be a little uncomfortable.
Right. Absolutely.
But it's better than fitting in, because fitting in is just not authentic, right?
Not authentic at all. Yeah. Yeah. And think about that though. How many times we've done that, like, just, you can take work situations or maybe a situation where I can recall having to go to a dinner with a group of individuals. Like, I could not get out of it and I didn't fit in. You know, they were drinking really, really expensive wine that I couldn't stand the taste of. And I was sitting there like, oh, yes, you know, if you think of how many times with groups of friends, family members that, you know, we're just trying to fit in. We want to fit in, you know, we want to fit into the, sometimes we want to fit into the groups that we would love to belong to, right?
Right.
Like, yeah.
Then you come to that realization, maybe not.
Yeah, maybe that's not where I'm supposed to be, right? Yeah. I'm not supposed to be here.
So let me see, on page 26, she says, she actually bolded this: a deep sense of love and belonging is an irreducible need of all women, men, and children.
Yeah, I have that underlined here. Yeah.
Everybody wants to belong.
Everybody.
You know, and we're made for the connection piece, which I thought that was interesting, just right now with so many people just being and feeling so isolated.
Right. Yeah. How it's a human need, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know what I thought, practicing love and belonging, I highlighted this big time. To begin by always thinking of love as an action rather than a feeling is one way in which anyone using the word in this manner automatically assumes accountability and responsibility. Have you ever thought of love as an action rather than a feeling? Like, most people have absolutely not, right?
No, they feel it. It feels good.
Yes, right. We put that in the feeling category.
My husband says it's a principle. Love's a principle. If if love was only a feeling, when all those things start going south, and that's where you have all the problems. But if it's a principle, it holds steady,
Right. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Completely. Always say, I'm supposed to feel love. We always put that in the feeling category. I said, I'm gonna be working on that. I'm gonna be working on treating it as an action. Definitely gonna be working on that. Mighty Strong said, I'd rather belong to myself and make things around me fit. Yeah, Absolutely. That's how you
Yep.
should be wherever you belong. If that's with yourself or in a group of people that you actually belong in.
And it doesn't take you long to figure it out. If you don't belong,
No, 5 minutes, right?
like, you know.
5 minutes. Sometimes not even that long.
Right. Exactly.
Do y'all think this would be a good book for a Zoom book club? I'm thinking about facilitating one.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is a perfect book for a Zoom book club. When you are surrounded by people who genuinely love you, you have a sense of belonging. But belonging also begins when you accept who you are and surround yourself with the people who elevate you. Yep.
I think that's the thing. It's about, you have to love yourself first. You love yourself first, then you will surround yourself with the people who love you. It's hard for that to be the other way around.
Yeah. So all right. So this was fun. This was good. I liked this. And I told you we wouldn't get as far. We wouldn't get through. Did we get? No, we didn't get to.
No, I think we skipped around, which is okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like we
we
didn't really get to the things that get in the way. That's a whole other thing.
Right.
I think that was the 4th chapter, but I think we did pretty good.
Oh, we should have talked about. We didn't talk about the difference between guilt and shame. Did we talk about that?
No, we did not.
You didn't mention that. I liked reading that. I thought that was really good. Guilt equals I did something bad. Shame, I am bad. That's
kind of touched on that when you were talking about like, when your husband does something or you get on him about something, it's kind of the same thing too.
right.
Like,
The behavior.
But I think I struggled with that because I always feel like guilt is like so bad. We always hear that guilt is so bad. To me, this is like, well, guilt is better than shame. Really? I kind of struggled with that a little bit. But once again, it's probably how we've always been taught.
Right. So do you think guilt is worse than shame?
Not with the way she describes it.
Yeah.
Not the way she describes it, but just in my, being guilty. I don't know. I always feel like if you're guilty about something, then but it's true. If you're guilty of something, then you probably owe someone an apology. Whereas, shame is just about yourself.
Right. Yeah.
It's about yourself. And sometimes that apology from guilt may be to yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I've had to apologize to myself many a times. Many a times, girl, I'm sorry.
Actually, yeah.
Carol J says, I always define love. I define it as showing loyalty, respect, kindness, compassion, empathy, patience, thinking about others and considering their feelings, even when they aren't present. That's love.
Mm-hmm. But all of those are actionable.
Right. Yeah.
So it goes right back to it. They're all actionable.
Yep, that's definitely love. Carol J, I always tell people love is an action. It's about what you do and not what you say. That's what I tell my husband all the time. It's not about you can call me 32 times and say you love me. Act like you love me. That's All right. So this was fun. We've actually been on here for an hour and a half.
Wow.
It always goes by so fast. So do we have any questions from viewers before we get out of here? My family says there are a lot of comments. They go so fast on so fast. I'll have to come back in. Mighty Strong says guilt will make you impulsive. And shame will make you hide it or do better.
Well, you hope that guilt will at least make you aware.
Right.
At the very least, anyway.
Make you aware and make you do better
Mm-hmm.
in the future. Somebody says compliments and criticism come in equal measure, but you have to positive with life. Then someone criticizing you don't know their situation. I saw someone, Kelly said, if you live from the compliments, you will suffer from the criticism. This one is so dear to me because the same ones who love you today can despise you tomorrow. Please, God, have self-love. Yeah. We talked about compliments earlier. Yep. All right. So thank you so much for doing this with me, Heather. It's been fun.
It has. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, everyone who joined us tonight. This was a lot of fun. So we'll say we'll give it a week and then we'll come back and we'll discuss the rest of the book. So are you going to come back on here with me, Heather?
Yeah, it was fun. I'll do it.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week. And thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been hard for me to keep straight. My camera's here. And then my screen's down here where I can see you. So, all right. Good night, everyone. Now let me figure out how to take us out of here. So we have